Hola, amigos, amigas, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Edwin Quintero. I'm going to be the moderator for today. And we're super excited. We're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It begins on September 15th and it ends October 15th. Basically commemorates the independence anniversaries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, and Belize. And so, just how everything is bigger in Texas, it's deep rooted as well. Our Hispanic heritage is deeply rooted in our culture. It's deeply rooted in our history, and our employees bring that culture to work every day. And so we love that. The better way to celebrate in the culmination of Hispanic Heritage Month is to celebrate and honor the contributions of some of our Hispanic employees working at Texas state parks. But also, we want to have a good conversation with our colleagues about our Latinas and Latinos working in Texas state parks, and we kind of want to look towards the future and engage the next generation of stewards that are going to help us protect our wild things and wild places for future generations to come. So, with that being said, I definitely want to welcome the rest of the panelists. Please go ahead and join us this afternoon. You can go ahead and turn on your cameras and let everybody see. So, again, hola, amigos y amigas. Thank you so much for joining us today. It means a lot that you guys were able to take some time from your busy day to just kind of get together, have a casual conversation, and pretty much we're going to get to know each other pretty well during our panel discussion. But first of all, I want to take the time to open up the conversation to everybody in the panel. And please let us know who you are, uh, where are you currently at, and how did you come to your current position at the location that you're currently in? So, um, Nicole, would you mind sharing your current position right now? Who are you? What do you do? And how did you come to that position?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Roque. I am the Community Outreach Specialist at Hueco State Park and Historic Site in El Paso, Texas. I've been working for the agency for around 6 years in some form. I began my career right out of college. I took an AmeriCorps Vista position. So if you're unfamiliar with AmeriCorps, it's kind of like domestic Peace Corps. And I was assigned to the Franklin Mountain State Park. I studied wildlife and conservation ecology. And so my career path was kind of set. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist. But working at the Franklin Mountains, I really quickly realized what I really like to do, which was work within my community. And so my job there was to increase the capacity of the state park to outreach to our underrepresented communities. So I worked at the Franklin Mountains as an AmeriCorps Vista for about a year and a half. And then from there, I transitioned to the Weiler Aerial Tramway, where I was a customer service representative. I sold tickets and I gave gondola rides. And then I ended up here at Hueco. I served for 4 years as the interpreter here, as one of the interpreters here. And just recently moved into a new position here at the park, which is community outreach specialist. So my job is basically working within the community and our various stakeholders. And I'm super excited about it. I love working for the agency, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's awesome to hear the journey of folks kind of working in different capacities and eventually, fulfilling that mission that really, calls to them. Jared, would you mind letting the rest of the panel and everybody else that logged in to see this, who you are, what did you do, what do you do, and basically just, how'd you get to your current position?
Sure. Thanks. This is Jared Ramirez, Goliad State Park and Historic Site, and the superintendent. I've had a kind of a long journey to get here. I came most immediately before TPWD. I was a teacher. I was a history teacher and also English and ESL teacher in Houston. And came to the park almost 10 years ago as the lead interpreter. And from there, moved into the assistant manager role. For a brief time, I was interim at 6 months at Monument Hill, another historic site, and then ultimately landed as superintendent here almost 2 years ago now. So been in a lot of different roles in the same park, very similar to the work I was doing previously as a teacher in some ways, and totally different in other ways. So it's been a great place to be since then.
Nice. Thank you so much, Jared, for sharing your journey to Texas State Parks. I'm sure we all can kind of relate to some of those, holding those different positions and talking to the public, teaching young kids. So that's really cool. Julissa, would you mind, kind of just sharing with the rest of us and everybody else logging in, who you are, what do you do currently in your current role, and how'd you get to that position?
Sure. Thanks, Edwin. My name is Julissa Gonzales, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator. I'm located in the Austin area, but I do work across the state. I'm very new. I've only been on board for 3 months, and it's been a very amazing time to get to know the organization, the agency, the mission, and all the amazing people here. I'm first generation Guatemalteca. I was lucky enough to live in Guatemala, where my family's from the age of 12 to 21, where I started college. And in Guatemala is where I noticed a passion for the great outdoors, as well as helping communities become empowered to access the resources that are available through government and different agencies. A lot of my background comes from nonprofit. And so this is the first time with the state agency. And it's really exciting to be able to leave that awesome footprint or that grain of sand in something that I love so much. It's the great outdoors. But I pursued a career in a government or a specific state agency. One, because I'm in love with the outdoors, but also I pursued a master's in public education, public administration, excuse me, with a focus on emergency planning and environmental conservation. And so it was just a really great fit. I was really happy in my career in nonprofit and education development. But I must say that getting a master's really helped me pursue that public administrative role. That is why I'm here today for the most part. And so happy to join you, Edwin, and all the other amazing panelists. And thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julissa, for kind of telling us your journey to state parks. It's always really neat to hear, different backgrounds and how they come to state parks. Gloria, would you mind sharing your perspective? What do you do? Obviously, who are you? And then how'd you get to that current position you're currently on?
Of course. Hi, good afternoon, y'all. I'm Gloria Gomez. I'm the physical control specialist, which is an auditor. I've been with the department close to 17 years already. I started off with the department as a seasonal, and I didn't think it was going to last that long, but I have gone through several positions. I did go from clerk to administrative office, and then actually within the department, I went into a different division. So it was on Always State Parks. I went into law enforcement. I worked with the game wardens for a while. And then came back to state parks. It's been a long journey, but throughout it, I also took out my associate's, bachelor's, and my master's degrees. But yeah, it's been a really long journey. Thank you for having me here.
Nice. We're excited to have you here. We're glad we have you back in State Parks Division. So that's awesome. Hey, Lisset, would you mind sharing, with the rest of the panelists and everybody else logging in, who you are, what do you do, and how'd you get to that current position you're currently on?
Yeah. Hi, how are you? Well, my name is Lisset Monteagudo. I am the park interpreter here at Lake Somerville State Park. I am the first one official interpreter here at the park. So, wow. Always when I think about it, it's like, wow, this is huge. I just came to USA 3 years ago. So I'm new in the area. I'm new and I live 1 year in California, and then I decide to move Houston. I have a great relation with Houston and Texas because my brother, he born here. So I feel like I have that connection because him. And I study tourism in Costa Rica, specialist in ecotourism, and then master degree in sustainable tourism. So I'm so happy, and I have to be honest with you, this one is my first job being as a professional here. So I'm so happy with TPWD that they gave me this opportunity that is, I mean, it's huge. It means a lot for me. So that's the way that I'm here. I was a teacher in El Salvador at university, so that's the reason I will let you know I'm Army in the next minute.
Nice. That's awesome. It's great to really hear these really cool stories, and I think we'll hear this kind of theme coming around every so often where we you know we love what we do, and a lot of the times it doesn't feel like it's a job. And so that's really neat to hear that you kind of found your niche. So Jacob, would you be able to can you let us know, the rest of the panelists and everybody else logging in, who are you, what do you do, and how'd you land in the current career path that you're in right now?
Yeah, my name's Jacob Gonzalez. I'm from San Antonio, born and raised. But when I was 18, I joined the Marine Corps. I recently retired, so I've only been working here for about 10 months. And yeah, so my intent after retiring was to go and be a game warden, which is the reason why I went and got my bachelor's degree. I started working my master's in environmental management. Um, but I chose environmental management because at the time I was doing a lot of safety inspection. So I was doing regulation for hazmat and explosives, and studying environment. I expected it just to be regulation, but really my first class, I ended up doing a project on the Bexar County endangered invertebrates. I started, tracking feral hogs. I started working on all these natural resource projects that had nothing to do with the regulation that was the original reason I was going to school, because I was still in the Marine Corps at the time. So I really enjoyed that path of study. I love being outside. And then I decided to apply for this interpreter job rather than a game warden because I thought it would be more enjoyable and less stressful. I walked around with a gun for a long time and I didn't want to do that anymore. So that's why I'm here. And this really is the greatest job. I take people hiking, I take people kayaking, I talk about everything you can see in the park. It's really great. And I'm really enjoying this part of my career.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for sharing that. That's pretty cool, and we always like to kind of hear that from our peers. You know, it doesn't feel like a job sometimes, and we really love what we do, and so that's awesome. And Rochelle, would you be able to share your perspective? I know yours is a little bit different as a park ambassador, but I'm curious to hear your perspective, and please share with the rest of the panelists and anybody else joining today. Just let us know who are you, what do you do, and how'd you end up choosing, being a park ambassador for the state park that you serve for.
So my name is Rochelle Rodriguez. I'm the ambassador for Cooper Lake State Park, Doctors Creek unit. So the way I got into this was, well, I've always loved animals and stuff like that and enjoyed nature. And I'm a wildlife conservation major here at Texas A&M Commerce. So last year was my freshman year and that was when I applied. And I was just kind of needing more guidance on what I wanted to do in that path, and if I was really sure if I wanted to go into like the more outdoorsy industry instead of choosing something else. So I applied for the ambassador program because I feel like I didn't have much experience elsewhere, and so the ambassador program was one of those programs that you could kind of just apply with what you had with experience of volunteers and stuff like that, and you didn't really need recommendations. So I took that as a way to get my entry into this and be able to gain more experience and get some recommendations and really experience whether I really want to go into this. And I think I I'm convinced that I really like this. I like working as an ambassador. I like being able to help people. I like helping the parks and spreading knowledge around about conservation and stuff like that. So I think it's been a helpful experience for me.
Cool. That's awesome. That's exactly what we like to hear from folks that are still in college or exploring what they want to do. And so I think you hit that right spot on. Lastly, my name is Edwin Quintero. I'm the park superintendent at Gonzales State Park, and I've been here in this position for right around 3 years now. I've moved around the state for a little bit. But I actually started my career at Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park, which is down in Mission. And, it's been a very interesting ride for sure. I definitely love what I do. My background is in biology. And I never knew that I was going to fall into a state park or a park ranger position. I was going to school as a biologist, working for other uh, entities like Texas Water Development Board or TCQ. And, you know, my passion was in research, but I also secretly had another passion, which was, camping. I liked hiking. I really like talking to people and introducing people to new experiences. And I just fell into this particular job as a park ranger, right? And kind of worked my way up the ranks. And ever since then, it's great. I love it. I love what I do. And the rest is history. And so it's great to hear everybody's journey to where how they got to that current position that they're currently on, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last position. I'm sure everybody's going to keep on moving for sure. The next question that I definitely want to ask, and I'm kind of picking back up on this first question that I asked is, Jacob, I you briefly talked about how you landed in your career path, um, which was being, a park ranger, an interpreter. But if you had to give advice to students that are currently logging in right now and listening to this webinar, and they're trying to decide their own path or their career, what advice would you give those folks that are tuning in right now?
I would say find out the requirements and seek out people in those positions, which, we have a park ambassador. I work pretty closely with our intern. So I'm still a master's student, but during the time that I retired, there was about a 9 month gap before I started working again. At that time, I was going to college. Not for the master's degree I'm working on. I was going to college for water resources at the community college. I had the opportunity because I had the GI Bill, so it was paid for. So it was a little bit easy, but that was not, I didn't finish the program, but I still had access to about 3 classes that I took, all with water resources. So that was very helpful. And again, I was volunteering at Government Canyon. And the reason I was volunteering at Government Canyon was because I still had wanted to be a game warden, and I thought it would look good on an application. And I did put that on my application for a game warden, but during the process, right, they were making, I was exercising, getting ready for the game warden path. And like I said, I was just having so much fun doing restoration projects at Government Canyon, that I started looking for parks in the area around San Antonio. And then, yeah, like I said, I got offered this job, but even before I got offered, I was coming to the park every other day, every 2 or 3 days. It was about an hour and a half drive for me at the time, and I was walking all the trails. Right, I was like, if I get this job, I'm gonna take people hiking. Yeah, and I was talking to the people that worked here and the people that worked at other parks. So just reach out and find out, get involved, I guess, especially with the volunteering, because there's people like me that are always looking for volunteers. There's always something to do. There's other groups out there, Master Naturalist group, which is something I started a chapter here since I started working in the area. Just get involved and go see what's out there.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob, for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. I think networking for sure goes a long way. And just getting out there, right? Um, Definitely helps kind of decide and fine tune what path you're going to want to take. Lisset, would you mind sharing your perspective? I know you said you fairly new in the current position you're in right now, but what kind of advice would you give to some of the students or anybody out there that's wanting to pursue a career in outdoor conservation? You know.
Yeah. Well, as I told you, in my case, I born and grew up in El Salvador. Then I studied tourism over there. But when I was studying, I was like, I don't like the way that the way that they are teaching me. So I was like judging, right, the way, and I thought I'm gonna move to Costa Rica and I want to study over there. And when I was in Costa Rica, the career was so focused on nature. And I remember this subject about history about Costa Rica. And I just knew in that moment, this is my area. This is something that I love. This is something that I really want and I really continue want to do. So, and then I work in different areas, being honest. My first job was in a travel agency. And then I moved to teach at the university. And but I was teaching ecotourism, sustainable tourism, everything related with nature. So I think it's not bad if you want to try to get knowledge from different areas, right? You can do it, right? And sometimes you won't take the first career, like the first one will be like that match with you or your dreams. Or sometimes, as I am right now, you have to move to another country, you have to do different things. Uh, but it depends if you love the things that you are doing. I was living in Houston, now I'm living in Brenham, around Somerville. I mean, but I am enjoying this. It's a big change, I know, but it's something that I love. And I think that's the secret, right? Try to think that you will go every day to your work, to your job, and try to do something that you will be continue enjoying every day, right? Every day, because I have the idea that we spend more time in our jobs than in our houses. So it might be nice to be there. So that's my advice, like try, experiment, and enjoy and love the things that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisette. I think that's really good advice for young folks out there, or just anybody wanting to, pursue a career change, or just kind of fine tune and find their niche. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Jared, would you mind, if you had to, I know you slightly talked about how you landed in your current career path right now, but would you mind sharing any advice that you may have for students out there that want to decide what path they want to take?
I'll try. So, my journey was not linear at all. I mean, I knew I liked the idea of working in state parks from a young age. Most of my family vacations as a kid were at state parks. But I didn't go directly into college. I actually dropped out of high school and had a GED and just kind of worked in all different kinds of jobs for years. And every once in a while, I throw my hat in the ring and try to get in with TPWD. And not it's competitive. A lot of people want to work with this agency, so I would take it and keep moving and do something else. And then over the years, I just gathered more experience in a lot of different areas. And education, I think, was the big one that really kind of opened up the door into my interpretation position. And so I guess one of the things of advice I would try to give to people that are trying to decide what to do is just make sure you don't spend too much time doing things that you don't care for. I think that's kind of how I got here. Was I was always willing to like buckle down and continue to do some work if that's what I'm doing right now. But as soon as I know this is not, I don't like the path I'm on anymore, I listen to that feeling. And ultimately, that's listening to that feeling repeatedly is what got me here. And I feel like sometimes people don't do that because the most obvious career choices that seem really clear to everybody around you, sometimes that's not what you're supposed to do. So in my case, there was a few periods where I'm taking a pay cut or relocating, making an uncomfortable decision. And so listen to your gut. That's probably the best advice I could give.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jared, for sharing your thoughts on that. And yeah, it's absolutely right. I think when I was in college, my initial degree was like criminal justice or something like that. I had a friend of mine or a group of ours that we were in that particular career path, but I was always drawn to the biological sciences. And anyways, I just, like you mentioned, I just ended up making a gut feeling. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go with this. I'm glad I did. I really enjoy what I do now. And so really good advice for folks, thinking about those type of things early on in college. So good stuff for sure. So just to kind of touch base on a couple other things here is Gloria, I know you mentioned you kind of started working with law enforcement, the LE division, and then kind of move over to the state parks division. But if you had to give yourself advice, your younger self, um, what would that one piece of advice be so that you would do something differently now, growing up, so that you could be in that better career place? Because a lot of the times we do those type of things as our younger selves, and you're like, man, I wish I would have done that.
Well, first of all, don't have your lifetime by your family. Yeah, so my family wanted me to become an RN. That wasn't for me. Yeah, but I'm not much into, I mean, I love taking care of people, but not in that kind of stuff. So once I was actually here, I mean, I found myself. I did. Like, I love working with the department. That's why I've been here for so long, 17 years. But yeah, definitely don't have your life planned by your family. You got to do for you. That's one thing I learned. It took me a while to finally get where I am. I switched my major like 3 times. I was going to architecture, nursing, and then I went to accounting. My accounting teacher really kicked my booty there. So I went into business administration and kept working with the department, kept going up. And I mean, I love helping people in general. I was in customer service for the longest time. I did not plan on being an auditor, but I mean, there's a lot of job opportunities with the department, and you'll find your calling. And I'm still not done with the department yet. I mean, I still have more career goals, and there are lots of opportunities. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Thanks, Flora, for sharing that. And no, I think you're right. I think one thing that resonated with me is don't let your family plan your future plans, for sure. I think as a first generation Mexican American, they had an expectation like, hey, you're going to go to school and you're going to become a doctor or you're going to become a lawyer, and really that's not your calling. And so, do what I've heard a few of you guys say is do something that you're going to like doing the rest of your career. So awesome advice. Thank you so much. Nicole, would you mind giving us your perspective? If you had to kind of rewind in time and give yourself your younger self advice on what to do that you would do differently now, so that it would be better for your career. What would that be?
Yeah, I think I would definitely tell myself to not be fearful, to really take those leaps and do those things that you want to do. I'm hearing, Lisset and Jared talk about, how they followed their gut, and Lisset moving, countries and trying new things. And I think the younger me was always very fearful. And I was always very afraid to make those changes. And I think this is true for a lot of people in that, you know, there's this perceived like lack of community in the outdoors. And it can be very intimidating. And that's where I found myself. I also took a very roundabout way to find my passion. I started off studying Chicano Lit, and then I, you know, moved into ceramics. But really, you know, my love and my heart was always kind of with nature and with animals. I just didn't know how to make that happen. I didn't grow up in the outdoors. I didn't grow up camping or hiking or anything like that. And so the thought of, you know, going out and doing that was so scary to me. And I always thought, you know, oh, like people are going to think bad of me. They're going to judge me. They're going to think that I don't know what I'm doing. And so if I could go back, I would tell myself, do everything that you want to do. Join all the clubs, join all of the events, you know, there is this community out there that's willing to like support and lift you up. You know, I think Jacob mentioned the Texas Pastor Naturalists, or, you know, like any of these organizations that can help you become more comfortable. Go to a state park. We offer all kinds of guided tours and guided hikes, you know, find your community because they're out there. And I think oftentimes we're just very fearful. And I know that's where I found myself, was just being very afraid of going into the unknown. But there's support and there's people. So do everything and experience everything and really find what you love and what you want to do.
That's awesome, Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that can be very real. You know, I can we bump into folks in the parks that they're here for the first time and just getting out. Even though the state park may be surrounded by the city, you know, it seems like it's out in the wilderness, and it can be very foreign. You know, and for me, growing up, I remember as a little kid, and I've you know said this before. You know, my parents worked outside most of the day, and so our free time, we didn't go camping. So I think that was a big barrier for us as a first generation Mexican American. That was totally taboo. We just never went out and did any type of camping because they were tired of being, you know, working outside for, you know, 10 or you know 80 hours a week, and so it was totally different. And so I can see how there's some barriers there sometimes. But thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nicole. I guess the other, you know, when we're thinking about, you know, how can we do better, if we kind of think back at our Texas State Parks mission statement, how can we do, as a division, how can we do better to kind of reach out to our Hispanic communities? You know, now with our centennial celebration, you know, we're trying to reach a diverse um, audience. You know, how can we try to get out into our Hispanic communities and try to have more outreach so that we can engage that audience? So, Rachel, would you give us your perspective as a volunteer? You know, how can we potentially improve a little bit more in that area?
So as an ambassador right now, one of the things that was like my goal is to reach out more to the Hispanic community, because I feel like like Texas state parks are still, they don't feel that open to the Hispanic community yet, or at least that's what I felt. So what I did as part of that is I often do things for my park where I'm translating social media pages for, you know, flyers and events, translate them to Spanish so that the community is able to see that and know that someone is trying to actively reach out for them. And it's also a lot of resources like cabin rentals, boat rentals, and stuff like that. And for fishing gear isn't translated, So one of the things that I've been working on is just translating those papers to make sure that the Hispanic community knows that they have these resources available for them. And it is not exclusive to only English speakers. They are given these resources, and we are hoping they take them.
Nice. That's awesome, Rochelle, to know that you're kind of working with the Hispanic community up there, and yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, sometimes they don't know what resources are out there, and it's good to be able to connect with them. If for some reason Spanish is their only language, how can they know what opportunities are out there at state parks, to be able to fish or just go camp. So that's good stuff, Rochelle. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Julissa, would you care to give us your perspective? How can we do a little bit better on reaching those Hispanic communities at our locations?
Yeah, and so our mission statement is quite long, but it's very, very relevant in many, many ways, not just to the outdoors, but it actually closes with for all generations, which I think is something that will really resonate when developing programming or having specific outreach targeting the Hispanic community. And when we're looking at the Latino demographic, and when we're diving more into how diverse the Latinidad is here in Texas, it's important to understand that it is a quite diverse community in itself. There's not only socioeconomic differences across the community, but race, ethnic, language, origins, and so much more. And so understanding that it's a really large demographic in Central Texas, Texas general, it represents over 50% of the population, and it's just growing. And so first of all, understanding that it is eminent that we reach out to the Latino community, because it is it's a significant part of who we serve. And we're already serving them. It isn't to say that Latinos aren't accessing Texas Parks and Wildlife departments. They are, but we need to increase the amount of individuals that are accessing it. And when we're looking at generational growth across intergenerational communities, we're looking at targeting whole families. You can't just target one volunteer, male or female. You have to create programming that's really going to cultivate that family belonging and family participation at many levels. And so if you're looking at increasing your volunteerism, think about childcare, think about transportation, and think about all of the layers of need that the demographic has. And it's not just socioeconomic. Like Rochelle was saying, a lot of that is just language paper and a language and paper. And there's a lot we can do as individuals who are hoping to target more Latino community members. But the main thing to do is to be strategic. Understand what is that you're doing. Don't get lost in everything that you could potentially do. Narrow it down. You're one person, and that one person has to stick to their strategic goals to really resonate to the community. Because the reality is that Latinos are going to represent themselves more if they have trust. That is a cultural importance of any Latino, any human being, whether you're Latino or not. And the reality is that historically, government agencies haven't been for people of color like Latinos. And so figure out how you're going to target the community and invite them and make them feel welcome. Make sure you're making that in a summary, not doing everything, and then cultivate that trust, consistent long-term goals that will then make the community feel more welcome and create that intergenerational participation in Texas state parks.
Nice. That's well put right there, Julissa. Definitely, yeah, cultivating that trust. How can we get different generations coming out? And for me, I had shared an anecdote earlier today. Is my parents never did any of that. Now that we are doing that more often, they're starting to see, oh yeah, we can do that. And so yeah, it sparks there's that spark of interest, and it'll eventually get everybody else. So thank you for sharing that with us. Jared, would you mind sharing your perspective on that? How can we do a little bit better and reach out to our Hispanic community?
Sure. I think I've heard some great words used that I'm kind of keying in on. One of them's strategic. we need to recognize that, we work with each other. We all kind of know certain sets of things. And not everybody has this knowledge. And so if you dig in our mission statement and look at the section that says to provide recreational and educational opportunities, and really focus on the word provide, we're curating these experiences. We need to remain focused on who are we trying to reach, what gaps there might be. A lot of the knowledge that I have is it's been handed down to me. Okay, an appreciation for outdoor experiences is typically handed down. And a lot of times in the process of acculturation, like as different people move around the world, move into another environment, they don't have the frame of reference necessarily. Okay, urban versus rural environments is a great example. Some of my most rewarding experiences as an educator were bringing students that had only lived in an urban setting and bringing them into the natural world and teaching them, this is what this plant is, this is what this insect is, this is how they interact with each other. But you have to provide that opportunity. And I think sometimes we get by thinking, well, we're providing the place. Okay, we're providing the setting, and that's our job, is to take care of the place and provide it. It's not just that the place exists, okay, it's that you're really sharing these opportunities, like the value in these opportunities, to a targeted audience, to people that are not like, our coworkers necessarily. There's some knowledge gaps here and there. So just remaining focused on that we're trying to have strategic, targeted messaging and curating these educational opportunities towards those people.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Jared. I love this panel. We're having some really awesome conversations about, careers in state parks. How can we, reach a more diverse audience group? And so let's keep it going. I know for, growing up, I had, I'm the oldest of two other sisters that I have. And so, growing up, there was totally a different, when we're thinking about Hispanic families, and there's a different expectation for male and female. And so I guess my question for Rochelle would be, you know, I used to go fishing or camping, when I was younger, but the expectation on my parents' side for my sister was a little bit different. Like, no, don't go out there by yourself. And so my question to you, Rochelle, is: does the gender affect the Hispanic experience, and how does it in turn alter how we view or we celebrate our history and where we are currently in right now? With visiting state parks or getting out to those outdoor spaces.
So my opinion is, yeah, the Hispanic experience is a lot more restrictive when it comes to females, to women. We have a lot more gender bias towards us. Like you said, my parents would always restrict if I go out or something like that. When people ask me, like, have I been to this state park and this one? I have to say no, because I have really strict parents, and unless they're going with me, they don't really give me the opportunity to explore. Now they're kind of loosening their rein a bit more since I moved for college, but it was still really restrictive, and I always have to check in with people, and there's still a mentality that, yeah, that women always have to be there for their family, that they're going to be the ones helping their parents, but there's still a preference for men because they're the ones carrying on the family name. So I do feel like there was like a gender bias and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe some women might relate. At some points there has been resentment to the culture because of the restrictions it puts on us, but I still love it, and I've grown to accept that. And I think that's how we should approach the fact that there's some traditions that are based on the oppression of women and restricting them. It's just, I believe that we should acknowledge that it was a thing, and that it's a part of our history, and that we should learn from it, because we can only move and progress in the future if we learn from our past. So I don't think it's something we should sweep under the carpet or anything like that. And we should still celebrate our parts of our culture that are beautiful and are magnificent, like dance, music, food, and art. Our culture has so many beautiful things to offer, but there are some things that have been kind of putting restraints on women, and I think we should just learn from those and progress further.
Yep, yep. No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's everybody comes from different walks of life and different their beliefs a little bit different. But yeah, I mean we certainly recognize there's a certain type of barriers that sometimes when we are trying to explore new things, or like Gloria said, my family was already choosing my career path. That's just, that's sometimes that's a part of our culture that they're expecting for us to go to college and get this really nice white collar job, that we're going to be in an office all the time, or we're going to be as a doctor or a lawyer. And so yeah, there's some challenges there that we, as a culture, trying to break through some of those barriers. So thank you for sharing your perspective on that. I really appreciate that. Nicole, I guess this next question would be for you. Do you do you think being Hispanic comes with a stereotypical label? And if it does, is it true? And do you try to change it up, or do you live up to it?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question, and it brings up for me some interesting conversation. So I think, first of all, it's important to remember that Hispanic is really it's a government term, right? It's used for statistical and demographic purposes, but it doesn't really capture the full complexity of identities in this group, right? So we went around and talked and introduced ourselves, and just in this small panel, right, there's diversity of people. We're from different countries. We have different cultural traditions. We speak different languages, right? And so to put any stereotype on the Hispanic community, right, would be wrong. You can't label this diverse group with any one thing. There's no way to accurately describe all of the individuals and the vast diversity and identities that we have. And so, on this panel, we're diverse. In Texas, as Hispanics, we're super diverse too. I even think about just the diversity in Mexican communities across Texas. I have this ongoing debate with my colleague from the Rio Grande Valley about what a taco is and what a burrito is, right? Like, okay, tacos are maize and they're folded, okay? But he has a different perspective. And so, we're diverse communities. So to put any one stereotype would be wrong. That said, culture to me is a different thing. And so I do embrace my culture, especially being from the frontera, being from El Paso, being on the border. There is a culture here and there's a community here. And so I do embrace my culture. And I do like to be a representation for my community here at the park. We wear these uniforms, and I think Julissa touched on it. There is sometimes a lack of trust with government agencies and people in uniform. Here in my community, I sometimes get mistaken for Border Patrol, right? And so for me, I like to embrace my culture, and I like to be a representative, a good representative for the agency and for someone in uniform. I want to create that level of comfort for people. I want, when people to come out here, they see me and they talk to me and we have a conversation and we have things in common, and I can help them find themselves in a state park, in the environment, in the community, because sometimes we don't see ourselves in the outdoors. And so I want to be sometimes that I want to be that bridge for people when they might be feeling uncomfortable. So I do embrace my culture, and I do like to be a representative of my culture, but you know, it's not all encompassing. And so there's definitely, we need to move away from stereotypes, and it's very harmful, and it's not how we can reach every person.
Yep. No, well put. And yeah, I can totally relate to that. Being growing up in a border town, talking to wearing a uniform, talking to the public, yeah, like you said, uh, they see somebody in a uniform, working for state parks, and they automatically think, oh, it's they think it's a law enforcement officer, or somebody in a law enforcement field, and which, even though that's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's just a culture thing, and being down in the border, talking to those folks, and building that trust, it goes a long way. And so I think there's a question here that I ask about, how often do we speak Spanish? And I normally, I try to break some of those barriers and make people feel comfortable, just kind of talking to them in Spanish. But that's really good. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nicole. So I guess the next question, now that we're in the next, in the past 5 years, we've seen so much movement, so much things that are happening, really good stuff that's happening. We're celebrating our centennial for Texas State Parks, and by engaging new and diverse audiences, I guess this question is for you, Gloria. You know, by engaging those new diverse audiences, we've seen a lot of these new centennial events happening across the state at state parks. We're bound to get new folks, new park users. So how would you predict, in the next 5 to 10 years, how would that look like for Texas state parks?
So within these last 5 years, I mean, slowly we've been seeing it change, especially right now with the post-centennial events. But within the next 5 to 10 years, I'd say we're actually reaching out a lot. For the short term that I was assisting at Trip Planning State Park, we did have a group that was all Latinos. They went out and they were surprised on how many activities are available and free to the public. And I mean, they're surprised, like, was like, oh my God, you offer kayaking, you offer archery, you offer ILO, you all have hiking trails. This is stuff that we normally wouldn't do, and it's free, and then right now with the whole centennial thing, and most groups are taking advantage of our events and going in for free. I mean, and you see that a lot, and I'm hoping that within the next 5 to 10 years, we see more of our people out there. More. I know most of South Texas, especially where I'm from Laredo, our park here, our big thing is like Easter. And we have lots of people coming out for Easter, even though like you only have like maybe about 100 available sites. You have other people just bringing in their own picnic tables because we're Rasta. we want the party. We'll come with our picnic tables. We'll come with everything extra. But I'm hoping that we do reach out more, and it's not just intended for people that are just out there for hunting, out there for fishing, but just more family unity, and just in general outreach to people, outreach to our community. Yeah. I mean, whatever we can offer available, and that's just externally. Internally, you can see that even our top positions with Austin, our TPWDR headquarters, you see more of our people. Definitely more of our people, which is it's empowering, because like for me as a female, Hispanic female, I see like, whoa, she can do it, so can I, I mean, we have our career goals, and that's one of mine. Like, I want to keep moving up, that's for sure. But but yeah, that's what I mostly see in the next 5 to 10 years. I see more of our people taking over. I mean, we already have all of South Texas because that's all I audit. I audit like half of Austin and then everything South Texas. So I got all my Hispanic Latino people. So I mean, it's wonderful, and I hope we keep doing more and more people get involved.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gloria. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely seen a big boom in park visitation. You know, we just got off the COVID, and that really opened up the doors to people that were looking for outdoor spaces to explore. And so we have all these new, folks that are coming back. And we have a new a group of visitors that had never visited state parks. And so with all the Centennial events happening across the state, I think we're definitely reaching a lot of a new diverse audience groups, and we can see a lot more coming out to state parks, which is great. That's what we want, right? So, with that being said, I know we have this session till 2 p.m. We'll probably carry on a little bit more than that. So anybody out there that's kind of logging in and they need to jump out for some reason, any of the viewers, it is going to be recorded, so you can always come back and just catch up on whatever you missed. But we'll keep on trucking along here. We're almost done here. So for any of the this question, it would be for you, Julissa. We never stop growing in our current roles with state parks or any position that you have with the agency. We're always learning something new. And so in your opinion, how would you define success for somebody that's, looking to start a career with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and, you ask your, personal view on that?
Yeah, thanks, Edwin. So I think success is something that can be defined quite differently depending the person. But in relations to state parks, I think getting closer to state parks, learning more, maintaining a learning mentality, and approaching different opportunities to engage with state parks, and whether that's starting to volunteer or figuring out what interpretation is maybe at a state park. I think the success is defined by the person, the individual themselves. And in order to be able to define success in relation to Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, make a task list. Don't just visualize success, actually create a 3D model or print of how you're going to go about that. In a world where we have so many distractions, where I like so many things and there's so much going around visually in front of me, it's really hard to slow down and really determine those critical steps that are going to take you to where you actually want to be. And so really slowing down the process, removing those biases you have. It's good to be a dreamer, but actually be a walker as well, and slowly and strongly go through those strong strategic steps that'll take you where you want to be. And so when it looks like a lot of people can dream and visualize, but really being concrete about where you're going to go, who you're going to meet with, what hands you're going to shake, and what social circles you're going to surround yourself with are really going to determine how successful you are in life, and whether those dreams actually turn into past stories. And so really look at that, look at mentorship opportunities, people that look like you. They say you have to see it to be it. And so really surround yourself by that circle of peers and people that you respect and that respect you, and give you the time you need to make sure that you're able to triumph in any obstacle that you put in front of yourself. But take it down a notch. What are those first 3 steps you need to take, and hold yourself accountable? And then once you start, you start with dreaming it, and then you make a plan, and then you start saying it out loud. And so you start carrying it out loud. And I think that's very integral and important to any person that's looking for success, however they define it. And some people's success might not be being CEO and top of the power corporate ladder or agency, right? Sometimes success could just really be helping that next oil spill, and teaching people about it. And if that's where you're happy, that's where you should be. And so success isn't defined by the financial growth that you gain. While that's really nice, I must say, in this world, success is truly defined by the person that you are and the person that you're living by day. And so figure that out first. And then that way you can uphold and appreciate who you are and then expand based on that. So it's knowing who you are and knowing the circle that you're supposed to be in. There's this popular saying that, you are who you're with. And so be very careful of who you are spending time with, but most importantly, understand who you are, and what you want, your dreams and desires, and be your number one champion. And so you have to motivate yourself day to day. And I do that by, honestly, I give myself a pep talk day to day, because I might not be a millionaire, but I am a powerhouse and I can do all these things. And so, it comes down to visualize, plan, and then act, and then be your biggest champion for yourself and find those champions in your life.
Yep. I think that's absolutely right. Just be the biggest champion for yourself, and never stop learning, because that's basically it, right? In life, we never stop learning. We're always growing as professionally and personally, right? So no, I think you put it, you're right on spot right with that. So thank you so much for sharing that your thoughts on it. Um, a lot of the times, we've been kind of we've been having this conversation about how can we break some of those barriers, and how can we make people feel a little bit more at ease, more comfortable when we're talking to, people that look like us, right? And so I guess this question is for Lisette. I know you're still pretty new in your current role as an interpreter, but I would like to hear your thoughts, or your thoughts on how often do you speak Spanish at the park? Do you have any type of programs, or do you, if you're at the headquarters, do you greet people as they come in through the headquarters?
Yeah. Well, yes, the first one was with Chris Bishop, who was the superintendent when I started working. And we practiced a lot of Spanish. Actually, he was pretty involved trying. He's continued trying, working on that, his Spanish. And I was so impressed and proud that the way that he wants to learn the language. So he was the first person, and I have a couple of colleagues that they are pretty interesting. And sometimes I'm back, and one of my colleagues, Sean, he's speaking with the people in Spanish now. Wow, look at you. And yeah, as a new here in the country, I don't know if you have been feeling this, but sometimes it's hard I remember my first year here, and I arrived to a store and asked something, and when you saw someone who speaks Spanish, it's like, thanks God, right? So many times I have seen people here at the park, and do you speak Spanish? Yes. See, they smile so happy, and they are so happy, and I can explain them, and we share the information. Oh, I'm from El Salvador, where you are, and so that's so nice. But yeah, I have been doing many programs in Spanish, and one amazing thing that I would like to share with you during this month that we are celebrating our heritage. I made a lot of programs in Spanish, and I was expecting for Latinos, right? But one day came one lady, and she was like, we were talking in English, and she said, we are waiting for more people, and say, I don't think no one else will be here today. And she was like, a bummer, I would like to practice my Spanish. And I was, no, really? And she said, yes, I went to Spain, and I get some classes over there. And I gave to her the completely program in Spanish. She asked me some things. We mix the English and the Spanish. But I'm impressed. And this is the thing. I think our programs here at Lake Somerville aren't just for Latinos. It's also for people who wants to learn Spanish too. Why not, right? A lot of people might to learn Spanish too. Is or another language. Is nowadays is so important. And I know that because I'm still suffering and I'm still learning English. So I'm thinking, hey, this is important. Learn more than one language will be help you a lot if you want to move, if you want to go another country, if you want to learn about culture. So I have been doing this, and it's open for everyone. It's not just for Latinos. It's also for people who want to study or practice Spanish, and also for the colleagues. So maybe one of these days we will have a classes in English or the Lake Somerville. Spanish. Sorry, Spanish. Yes.
That's awesome. And yeah, I love the, hey, let's multi different language and it's all centered around outdoors. I think that's the best way to kind of get everybody together. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Lisset. I remember being up at the uh, I worked at a state park up in the Panhandle, and we had a Hispanic family who would go in there all the time. They loved camping. They loved their barbecues, their pachangas. They would go there with their families and just hang out. And the first time I went up to them, I talked to them. They saw somebody in a uniform. They're like, oh, they were probably thinking, oh, here comes a law enforcement officer telling us that we can't do this or that or that. And the first thing I just did was like, hola, ¿cómo están? Me llamo Edwin, and their eyes just went like big, and it's like their wall just like came down, and they were offering me a plate of food, and we just started talking about things in the park, and different things that we had going on. So that was great. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Lisette. I really appreciate that. So I guess the next question for that, as we grow in our careers, and it doesn't matter in our current role that we have, it could have been in past jobs or past assignments that we had. But I guess the next question would be for you, Jacob. Have you ever had a Hispanic mentor or colleague that has paved the way in some sort of where you had to kind of look up to him, or you admired because they paved the way in some areas? And have they helped you in that current role that you currently are right now as a park ranger or interpreter, that you were looking up to them, and that's why it really helped you get into that current role?
So for me, that's kind of a two-part answer because I'm pretty new in this career, right? But previously in the Marine Corps, yes, I had tons of Hispanic mentors that have basically helped me become who I am today, right? So yeah, they helped me get to this current position, maybe not directly, but helped me become who I wanted to be. And that being said, there was also many mentors that I had in the past that were, not Hispanic, and they can contribute different things, right? And then here, right, in my current role, to be honest, no, there is no Hispanic or anybody that I could look up to in a position higher than me. I mean, people like you all on this panel have paved the way, right? Because we got some superintendents here. And I think that's great to be able to see that, yes, there are Hispanics in important roles within Texas Parks and Wildlife. But I went through a lot of interviews recently, right? A little less than a year ago, because this isn't the only park I apply to. And of course, we're a government organization, Texas government, public organization. Every one of the questions that was asked every time was about diversity and how do I feel about diversity. And I'm sitting across from a table of all white males, or maybe all white males and a couple females, and I'm giving my opinion on diversity and talking about why it's so important to me, to them, right? And it's kind of weird to have that interaction where everybody's looking at me, and maybe they don't quite understand exactly what I'm talking about because I'm talking to a very not diverse crowd. Right. And what I would say is I would always relate it to me in the Marine Corps. I was a recruiter at one time. And, you know, as a public organization, which TPWD is, we should represent the people that we are there to support, right? And that's Texans. So I heard somebody say earlier that we have a 50% or greater population of Hispanics in Texas. And I think you all know that we probably don't have a 50% Hispanic TPWD organization, right? So it's great when I do see people in good spots, and I would love to be a mentor to somebody, even though I haven't worked here very long. I'm kind of older. I'm in my 40s for somebody just starting a new career path. And I would love to mentor somebody. But yeah, I would say there's still work to be done as far as us filling that role as Hispanics and representing the population of Texas equally, right, in our organization. So I think a lot of that has to do with engagement and the type of programs we do. But yeah, the more effort we put into it, the better it's going to get.
Yep, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with me, Jacob, and the rest of the panel. And yeah, you're right. Talking to and I'm going to use myself as an example. As a young kid, uh, in middle school, you're talking to your counselor. I never thought that I could be a park ranger. And I never saw other park rangers that looked like me. And so that's why we're having these conversations so that we can, show what the possibilities are out there for folks that are tuning in and they're, thinking of their career path. This is something that, they can be a community engagement coordinator. They can be, an interpreter. They can be a fiscal control specialist. If they're in college and they're just wanting to explore their career opportunities, just somebody like Rochelle that, she came into that ambassador program just to see, how she really liked the outdoors. And so that is why we're having these conversations right now. And I appreciate y'all taking the time to log in for this webinar and just having those casual conversations. So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up our Hispanic Heritage Month panel discussion, and I really appreciate y'all, amigos y amigas. Um, you know, I love hearing the journey of how y'all got to the current role that you're currently in, and I love hearing that it's not that's not the stopping point. We're gonna be doing climbing that next goal that we're kind of reaching towards to. So thank you so much for joining us today. For the members that were able to join from remotely from home, from school, anywhere you guys join in from, thank you so much for joining us today. I believe they'll put my contact information at the end, or they can share my contact information after this webinar. And if any member of the public wants to direct a question to somebody in the panel, they can always send that information to me, and then I will put them in contact with that panel member. But that pretty much wraps up our Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you all for joining us today, and hasta luego. Uh, Hopefully we'll see you guys down the road at a state park or at another event. That's the beauty about working for Texas State Parks. We get to collaborate with each other across the state. So thank you so much for joining us. Hasta luego.
Bye.
Feliz tarde a todos. Bye.
Hasta luego, ciao.